So this lecture is the last of Unit 3, dealing with stress here. We've talked about what stress is, what stress does to our body, the different personality types that are involved with stress. And now we're going to take a little bit of a look at stress and disease, and then most importantly and optimistically, what you can do to personally combat stress. So that's what we're going to cover here. I have to sneeze here at some point, and that'll wrap up Unit 3. So when it comes to stress, a great example of it is 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. This is the most stressful job in the world. There is no more stressful job than being president of the United States. Why anybody would want it is beyond me. It is not a 9-to-5 gig. It is around the clock. It is constant judgment. It is constant criticism and approval. Poll every 3 days. I don't know who would want it, but every 4 years we battle for it, and somebody wants to take the seat in the big round office. I want to show you pictures of people as they entered the presidency and as they left the presidency, and you're going to see some wear and tear here. And these are the physical tolls of stress. Of course, Joe Biden has just entered it, so we'll leave that because it's only been a few months. Donald Trump enters in 2016 when he ran for president. At the age of 70, he was elected. He was our oldest elected president already. And then when he left last year, I guess earlier this year, a little bit of wear and tear. You see a lot of weight gain, a whole lot of weight gain. The belt getting much, much bigger, which is a sign of stress, not digesting the food as much, probably not sleeping as much as well. Then we take a look here at President Obama in 2008, became president at the young age of 47. Still freaks me out as someone who's 53. Then when he left at the age of 54, you do see the wear and tear on the lines and bags of the eyes, the snow caps on top and whatnot. Now, again, very fortunate for President Obama, very athletic guy, went to the gym every morning. And as we'll talk about with exercise, that's very important. And who preceded him was George W. Bush, who was also a bit of an athlete, went for a run every morning. So you're going to see the wear and tear that even though he fought a war on terrorism and everything else, and you're going to see the graying of the hair, he came out okay in the end. But again, 8 years of president, a lot of wear and a lot of tear on you. We take a look at Billy Clinton, gets elected at 46 in 1992, young governor from Arkansas. And then by the time he leaves, a couple of impeachments later, a lot of wear and tear. George Herbert Walker Bush, only president for 4 years. This is him going in after 8 years as vice president, head of the CIA and all that. And then after 4 years of the presidency, we can see, again, took its toll. Reagan, prior to Trump, was our oldest elected president, served 2 terms, left at the age of 77. And you really sort of see the wear going on. And also with Reagan, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's a few years after the presidency. And there is the argument that the stress of his second administration, which included Iran-Contra and some very other things, may have pushed the Alzheimer's forward and made it more aggressive. And it may have been showing up in his second term, as he seemed to be very forgetful during that time. Jimmy Carter, 52 when he was elected in 1976, leaves at the age of 56. And a little bit of wear and tear, but again, kind of a bit of an athlete, runner, and things like that. Just this morning, today is July, I'm recording this on July 7th. I just saw an article, him and his wife are celebrating their 75th wedding anniversary. Very impressive. Richard Nixon takes the presidency at the age of 55 in 1968, finally hits his goal that he's had all his life to be president of the United States. Then he faces Watergate and impeachment and does a bit of a number on him as well. Lyndon Johnson, only president for 5 years, took over for the end of Kennedy, but had to deal with the war on poverty, civil rights, and the Vietnam War. You know, he goes in looking like a dad, comes out looking like a grandfather. John Kennedy, only president for about 2.5 years before he was assassinated in Dallas, Texas, so not a lot there. Dwight Eisenhower, 62, when he became president of the United States after being the head of the Allied forces in World War II. And not only was he president for 8 years, but he also suffered 2 heart attacks. Look what that does to you. Harry Truman goes from 61 to 68, wrapping up FDR's term. FDR president for a while, 13 years. Elected in 32, elected to a 4th term in 44, although he only served a few months of it. But again, goes in at the age of 50. And by 63, that's some real, you go through, you know, the Great Depression and World War II and the New Deals, and that's a lot of wear and tear. But the end all be all, the guy who probably faced the most stress while president of the United States was Abe Lincoln. Abe Lincoln goes in at 51, this young lawyer from Illinois, and this is a picture of him 2 days before he was assassinated. And that is all stress, not to mention the fact that he lost his son while he was president. He was married to Mary Todd, who for all intents and purposes should have been institutionalized. And just, that's what stress does to us. That's what it does to us physically, okay? And the big thing is the heart, coronary heart disease, because when you're stressed, your digestive system shuts down because it's not looked at as important. I got to survive this particular moment. So as a result, we're not breaking down food the way that we should. The fat and everything else is getting into our blood system, and therefore our nice big thick arteries become a lot smaller, right? You see this build up here and this build up here. You know, the blood should be going through this big hose, and it's going through that tiny thing. It's the difference between if you take a hose and your water's coming out of a hose and you put your thumb on it, and now it doesn't have as much area to come out. So the pressure is much higher because the same amount of blood needs to go through, and that is high blood pressure. Again, coronary heart disease, leading cause of death in the United States, very infrequent prior to 1900, became a leading cause by 1950, and it is overwhelmingly a leading cause currently. And again, smoking, alcohol abuse, ignoring doctor's orders, not exercising, drug use, poor nutrition. We're eating fast foods, fatty diets, all these things. And we're sitting at desks all the time. We're sitting in front of a computer screen all the time. All of these things impact our health. And stress does lead to disease. You know, you think about Christmas. You know, when you were a kid, there was no stress to Christmas. But now that you become a teenager, Christmas does become stressful. You know, I've got to buy a gift, you know, but not only do I have to buy a gift, will they like it? When you're a little kid, you didn't care whether or not your parents liked anything. You probably even buy them a gift. And so holidays have changed. You know, you're 2nd grade, everybody gets a Valentine's in the 2nd grade. You got your little box, everybody gets the candy, everybody gets it. You get older and it's, oh my God, do I have a Valentine? Will I get any flowers? Will I have a homecoming day? Will I have a date for prom? Or all these things. And we stress about it. You know, people in weddings, we stress about it. It's just, there's no reason to do that. It really isn't. You got to keep it in perspective. And again, the following emotional symptoms that people have experienced with stress: irritability, anger, frustration, sadness, lack of interest, lack of motivation, feeling like you could cry. And then as a result of having this and our body not taking care of itself, we start to have physical tolls of stress. We're tired. We don't have the energy to stay in that resistance stage all the time. Headaches, upset stomachs, muscle tension, changes in appetite, grinding your teeth. All these things are physical results of our body not doing what it's supposed to do because it's running away from this mythical lion that doesn't exist. So when it comes to disease, stress doesn't necessarily cause disease. It makes us more susceptible to disease. When you take a look at something like AIDS, and AIDS is an acquired immunity deficiency system. HIV, the virus HIV, is what basically affects our immunity system. Now, when you're constantly stressed and you're really sort of taxing your immunity system and it's already infected by a virus, it's much more likely that the HIV is going to blow up into full-blown AIDS. You know, it's similar to other viral infections we're less susceptible to that we talked about yesterday. When you're stressed, you're more susceptible to get a cold. You're more susceptible to get the flu. We talked about COVID in the last lecture. You know, it's possible that the economic and school shutdowns have had an impact on people showing symptoms of COVID. You know, and early research and later research is going to show an amazing thing about this. You know, your susceptibility to it, a lot of it has to do with your attitude. Are you stressed about it? The more stressed you are about COVID, the more likely you're going to be a victim of COVID. Because your body is battling all these things in your head and it's not battling the virus and the disease that is out there. When it comes to cancer, your attitude has everything to do with your body's ability to fight it. It's one of my favorite studies of all time. And it's kind of it's a sad study, but it's an interesting study about women with breast cancer. They took a population of women who were all diagnosed with the same type of breast cancer. And then when the women were told the news, and they were all told the news the same way, and they were all given pretty much the same diagnosis, and they were all given the same way to fight it and everything else. But what they did was they paid attention to how the women responded to the news that they got breast cancer. And so they put them in 4 categories based on their response to the news that they got breast cancer. And they want to see their survival rate based on the response. So the first group of women that were told, you've got breast cancer, you got 6 to 9 months to live. You know, pretty harsh diagnosis. So the first group, their response was one of what is called stoic acceptance, which meant that they went, oh, okay, I'm going to not be alive in the next 6 to 9 months. Okay, well, what do I want to do? I want to go to Europe. I want to see my family. I want to move up my daughter's wedding so that I can see her get married. And, you know, it's just, I'm going to die, but let's make the most of my life and the time I'm here. And about 70+% of them, you know, within a few months, kind of gave into it, gave into the cancer. The second group, that when they were told that they had cancer, their response is one of hopelessness. You know, their response was, oh my God, I can't, why me? It's so unfair. Why not them? I do everything. This isn't right. This isn't fair. I mean, why even get out of bed if I have cancer? And just hope that no matter what I do, it's not going to matter. So even though they went on the program, had operations and everything else, due to their hopelessness, their mortality rate was even less, and the death rate was up to 80%. Fewer of them survived. Third group, when they were told, you got breast cancer, you got 6 to 9 months to live, their response was, so what are we going to do about it? How are we going to fight it? What's the plan? How are we going to take this on? What's the diet that I have to do? Whatever. I'm not ready to die yet. And those people who took a fighting spirit and said, I'm going to take this on because I'm not ready to go yet, take a look at their survival rate compared to these other 2 groups. Nearly 70%. I mean, still some gave in, but just that attitude of a fighting spirit of I'm not ready to die yet had a lot to do with them overcoming it. Now, here's the funny part. And I know it's a study in cancer and death and everything else. What can be funny about it? This is where it gets really peculiar, a little funny, is this fourth group. This fourth group of women that are told you have cancer. You're going to die in 6 to 9 months. Here's the program that will make you comfortable through it. Their attitude was, I don't have cancer. You're wrong. I want to go to another doctor. I don't think you're right. I don't feel like I have cancer. I don't have cancer. I'm not going to die because I don't have cancer. They refused to believe that they had cancer. Look at their survival rate, nearly 50%, which wasn't as good as the people who took it on, but was much better than the people who accepted it, where sometimes maybe denial is a good thing that we do. So again, the idea comes down to, do you control the disease or does the disease control you? Stress didn't create the cancer, but it does create the body's ability to fight it. You know, if I'm going to stress about it and be hopeless about it and whatever else, it's going to be much more effective at killing me. But if I think I can take it on, it's going to be better. It's going to be a lot better there. Let's talk about PTSD real quick, post-traumatic stress disorder. This is anybody who's ever been in a car accident at any point of their life and trying to get back into that car again and feeling a little bit nervous. You got a little bit of PTSD. A lot of times it's a result of prolonged, stressful situations where the person finds themselves out of control and they're fearful that they're in that situation again. Again, when we send people to battle in war, you know, we're asking people to play the Hunger Games, go to another land, be hunted while others are hunting you. And at any moment you could die and you don't know who the enemy is. And then after you do your tour of 6, 9 months, whatever, you come back, of course, you're going to be a little bit nervous. Of course, when you hear a certain language, of course, when you're in traffic or whatever, it's going to come back to this. Victims of abuse, victims of crimes, victims of sexual assault, 50% of rape victims will develop post-traumatic stress disorder. You know, and this is this idea of trying to deal with the past because you don't want to think about it. It was stressful. The last thing I want to do is think about it. But if you don't take it on and you don't control the memory, then the memory is going to decide when it decides to come forward, whether it's in a dream, whether it's a trigger of a reminder or anything else that it might be. That's PTSD, a bad situation that when you're reminded of that bad situation, you go back to that nervousness of that particular time of your life. That's PTSD. Symptoms include flashbacks, nightmares, guilt, anxiety, usually tied to a specific event. A reminder of the moment can take you back to that feeling, back to that sense of hopelessness, back to that sense of fear. And you can't control when you think about the event because the event just sort of shows up. There was a time early in my marriage, the first couple of years, where my wife actually called me by her ex-husband's name. And it was a result of PTSD. And it was not a terrible thing for me when it all ended up. Here's the situation. I was leaving the HEB at Barker Cypress in 290. We were going to the grocery store, we're leaving HEB, and it's a really bad intersection right there at Barker Cypress in 290. And usually you take a left, you go to the light over by the Sonic. But I decided I'm going to be a man, I'm going to go forward, and I'm not going to do that. So my wife thinks I'm crazy. She doesn't know. She's like, what are you doing? Why would you go this way? I got it. Don't worry, I got it. So I come out and cars are coming this direction, or the cars weren't coming this direction. So I sneak out, but now cars are coming the opposite direction over a bridge and everything else. And there's trees there. And so now I'm caught in a situation. And she's like, why are you doing this? I go, don't worry, I got it. And these cars are coming and these cars are coming. I'm just like, I can't see anything. I'm blinded by this other guy. I just go, screw it, hit the gas. And she's like, oh my God. And she grabs my arm and she goes, oh my God, Trey. I'm like, what? And go forward. So I get the car set and I'm going forward and I'm going north on Barker Cypress like I need to do. And she just, I'm like, you know what she just called me? And she goes, no. I go, you just called me Trey, which is the name of her ex-husband. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, that's okay. I didn't mind because she called me his name because she felt in danger. And feeling in danger is what caused her to say that name. That was PTSD. When she thinks of danger, she doesn't think of me, she thinks of him. That's post-traumatic stress disorder. But she was triggered because she felt endangered. That's PTSD. That's an overactive amygdala. That is you trying to repress particular memories. That's what PTSD is. And PTSD can come up with anything called a trigger. And by the way, this whole idea of triggers, it's a trigger to me, can be a little bit overblown. Many have recommended warnings to people of possible triggers. Please watch out. This may bring up whatever. And the question is, does this help people? Because a lot of times the reason you have PTSD is you're not dealing with the issue. Sometimes you got to deal with the issue. If you're a veteran of the Vietnam War, you need to sit down and watch Platoon and just you know, work your way past it, work your way through it, deal with the issue. And again, what may be a trigger for one person may not be a trigger for another person. So we can't just sit here and say, hey, here's a movie about sexual assault. It may trigger what you've experienced. But a lot of times that's not what the trigger is. The trigger is something outside of it. Often the trigger is what happened right before the event. You know, the screeching of the car tire before the car crash. That's what makes you nervous. The smell of a certain cologne or a body deodorant. The song that was playing in the background before or after the assault. The loud noises or sirens before the shooting. There's a lot of times that the things that had nothing to do with the episode is what the trigger is. So we can't sit here and put down every little possible trigger. And sometimes the warning is good because it gives you a heads up. But sometimes when you're warning someone, hey, this might make you nervous, and it's like, oh, it's supposed to make me nervous. And then we start to feel nervous. So again, when we become overtly concerned with trigger, we're reminding people, hey, you're not supposed to be okay with this, instead of allowing them to be okay with it, allowing them to work their way through it. So again, it's a double-edged sword when it comes to trigger warnings and PTSD. Some other stuff there, PTSD, if you'd like to take a look on it there, as well as there, and some there, and some there. We'll talk about it a little bit more when we get to disorders. Another thing outside of PTSD is something called secondary traumatic stress. Secondary traumatic stress is where you feel stressed because of those who you are around. Other people's suffering becomes your suffering. Now, again, an extreme version of this is people who get too into a TV show and start to, mirror neuron off of them. But for the most part, it's that when you have close friends that are going through trauma and you take on that trauma yourself through guilt and compassion and everything else, eventually it's going to wear on you. Someone who's an EMT can be impacted by they're constantly exposed to trauma every day. Nurses, doctors working in the hospital during COVID, even though they're not exposed to the COVID themselves and they're okay, watching these other people die all the time. Their stress becomes your stress. When you're around friends who are constantly going through trauma and everything else, that can wear on you. And sometimes you got to make a decision that is that friendship a healthy friendship for you? Or is it dragging you down? Because a lot of times people going through bad things, they don't want to let others experience good things. So they just want, my life sucks, I'm bringing others down with me. And as much as you want to help them, at times people don't want help at that particular time. They got to be okay with getting the help before they can get it. So sometimes you got to watch out, just like a bartender working at a bar and can get lung cancer, even though he's never smoked. You can suffer the battle scars of trauma, even if you didn't experience the trauma directly. That's secondary traumatic stress. Now, depression can be a result of stress. And again, depression we'll talk more about when we get to adolescence. We'll talk more about when we get to diseases. But this is a mood disorder in which a person, for no apparent reason, 2 or more weeks of not just bad moods, it's of just numbness. That's what depression is. The best way I can describe depression and the way that I've been told is that it just takes energy to do basic things, to just get up. You're not happy about things. Food that used to taste good suddenly doesn't have any taste to it. Just being around people takes every bit of energy that you have. And a lot of times the person who's depressed could sometimes be the person always smiling and always having a smile, because as long as I put a smile on my face, nobody's going to ask me what's wrong. Some people may be predisposed to it. It could be part of the family tree. Some people, it's a situation that happens in your life, whatever. But again, a lot of it's not being able to deal with the stressor that's going on. But again, some of us are just wired to be more likely to get this. Women are more susceptible to depression because they're more aware of their feelings. Guys are less susceptible to depression, but they're more susceptible to alcohol abuse, drug abuse. And sometimes we don't diagnose a guy with depression because when he's aggressive and angry, we just go, oh, well, that's just aggressive behavior. Sometimes that's a sign of depression as well. Okay, we'll get into that more down the road. So your attitude can contribute a lot towards your levels of stress. People who are optimistic tend to have less stress in their life. If you look forward to the good in life, if you're thankful for what you got, you're eating a cookie and you're like, wow, I got a cookie. This is great. And this tastes wonderful. And I'm so glad to have this. Your glass is half full and you're thankful for that half glass. You're not going, who the hell drank half my glass of water? Bad situations happen, but bad situations are temporary. The good's going to go on, and you remember the good to get you past the bad. Remembering the good. Yes, sometimes can be bad, but I know of good times. Yes, this is a bad thing in my life, but this bad thing in my life is temporary. It too shall pass. It's only this situation. It's not all of my life. So as long as you're optimistic, you are less likely to be a victim of stress. The key, though, is not to be unreasonably optimistic, where it breaks you from reality and it doesn't allow you to be rational. If you're too optimistic, too extreme in that, it can actually be a sign of mania. But the pessimistic explanatory style, this contributes towards stress. This contributes towards depression because you think it's going to be like this forever. It's never going to change. It impacts everything that I do. There's no way this is going bad. There's no way I can do anything. If you think you're going to die, you're more likely to die. When we talked about that diagnosis of cancer, the attitude of these people is more likely to lead to poor health. Well, it doesn't matter what I eat anyways, I'm just going to die. If that's what you're doing, if you got injured and you're getting through your rehab and everything else, you get back on that football field and you're like, okay, I'm going to play, but I just don't want to get hurt. You play not to get hurt. Odds are you're going to get hurt again, because that's what your focus is. You just got to play. And if you get hurt, you get hurt. But you just got to play or else it's a guarantee. People with depression are much more likely to have pessimistic attitudes and are therefore more likely to fall deeper into a depression because they think it can't get out of it. And it just becomes this rumination that goes on and on. Why even try? Why even do anything? It's just going to be bad. All things are bad. Everything sucks, and it just keeps you locked in that. And it's hard to get out of it. It's really hard to get out of it. So again, optimistic explanatory styles are healthier than pessimistic. Be happy for your half glass. So again, more stuff there on attitude when it comes to depression. Now, the greater the social support we have, reduced stress. Now, again, social support, that's different from the number of friends. You could have a lot of friends, but that doesn't mean that you have great social support because those friends could be going through their own whatever and whatnot. Okay. So again, dealing with stress, you got to have people that are there for you. You got to have people that are your cheerleaders, that your success is their success. A lot of times, if you're taking AP classes, you want to be with other kids that are in AP classes because they know what it's like to have to study more. If you're in athletics, you want to be with other people in athletics because they know what it's like to have to spend that amount of time there. We want to be around other people who are like us because they know what we're going through. But again, friends can also be the cause of stress when I'm hanging out with all these kids that are in all these advanced level classes and we're competing for a grade point, only they don't want me to have success. So again, we've got to take a look at what relationships are healthy, what relationships are unhealthy. You'll have some people that are dating and I think this girl is so wonderful. And if everybody else discovers how wonderful she is, then maybe she'll leave me. So I need to tell her she's terrible. Totally messed up, but that's what people do. But you want to go to support groups. You want to see how other people got through that. Go to an AA meeting. I don't know what it's like to be an alcoholic, but we'll go talk to other people who've struggled with it, who've gone through it. It makes us feel better. It reduces our stress. We feel like we aren't alone when that happens. Again, people who are married tend to be more happy. Again, it's if you're in the right marriage. People who are divorced tend to be less happy because it's that isolation and it's that idea that I'm alone now. And again, when you take a look at lifetime rates of depression from the United States to Canada to Puerto Rico to Germany to Taiwan, Korea, New Zealand, people who are separated or divorced, men or women, yellow or red, higher rates of susceptibility to depression than those who are married. And again, the more support we have, the better it is. Let's talk about religion real quick. I'm not here to make anybody religious or not religious, because according to the First Amendment, as a public school teacher, I can't say anything to encourage nor discourage religious beliefs. But when it comes to stress and it comes to religion, religion can be a very effective way of battling stress. It can be very effective because, again, most religions encourage healthy behavior, discourages sinful things, smoking, drinking, putting yourself at risk. There's social support. You're around a group of people who are like you, think like you, all these other things, and it gives you a sense of community. And most every religion has a very positive message. As a matter of fact, most all religions really kind of have the same message. Take care of yourself, be charitable to others, and you'll be rewarded on the other end. And if you do something bad, you're being watched, and there'll be punishment for that. So this idea of religion can lead to better health, a better immune system, better hormones, less of a rate of suicide, and all these other things. But as much as religion can have a positive effect, religion can also have a negative effect if you're worried that everything you eat is going to be a sin. Everything you do is looked down upon and you're going to burn for eternity. So it can be negative. But for the most part, studies have shown that people who have some religiosity in them tend to have lower levels of depression than those who do not. And again, a lot of it has to do with support. Because if you have something tragic happen to you, let's say you lost a loved one, you lost a dog, whatever, you can't, why would my mother die at such a young age? And why am I here without my mother? And if someone goes, there's someone and they have a plan and you want to be given anything, if you couldn't handle that, it makes us feel better to feel like there's a power that's taking care of things, right or wrong, whether it is or isn't. It does make us feel better. In the same way, when we do something bad, someone says it's not your fault. Yeah, it feels pretty good. Feels pretty good to kind of push that off onto something else. Another thing, exercise. And this is a tough one. Because when we talk about stress, you've got all this adrenaline that's going in your body, all the cortisol, the blood sugar going in your body. And a lot of times, it's like our body's prepared to run away from a lion, but we never run. And sometimes we need to release that energy. We need to go to the gym with all that extra adrenaline. We need to get on a bike. We just need to go for a walk. We just need to do something with our body, because a lot of time our body's reaction to stress and all the damage that we're doing, we need to just get it out. And it can also alleviate depression and anxiety, which we'll talk about down the road. But when you exercise, it strengthens your heart. It strengthens, which increases your blood flow, which means the next time that you have stress, your body's going to be more prepared for it. It promotes the growth of new brain cells. It lowers your blood pressure. All important in future times where you're going to have to deal with stress. It's like prepping you for stress and everything else. So again, exercise can bring down depression. It can bring down anxiety. But again, that's a very simple prescription for bringing down depression and anxiety. Because again, somebody with depression, it's hard to just get out of bed, get your socks on, let alone get to the gym. So, when you go, hey, why don't you just exercise? Get your serotonin. It's hard. It's really, really hard. Humor. Laugh it off. Laughter releases endorphins, which are natural painkillers. It releases dopamine when we laugh, which is pleasurable. Laughter just makes us feel good. To have a good sense of humor buffers the effect of stress. It promotes wellness. It makes us feel better. It makes us feel something. And it also makes others want to be around us when we have a sense of humor, when we're laughing at things. Those are the folks you want to be around. And so then when I'm around other people, those people are supporting me through these particular times. Now, why does humor help us? Well, we look at events as less threatening. We laugh it off. Oh, yeah, wow, I did terrible on that test or whatever, but it's just a test. You can't let it bother you too much. It increases the experience of positive emotions versus negative emotions. It rewards the relations. Again, greater social support. We take ourselves less seriously. We realize that not everything is life or death. Some things are just funny. And, you know, kids get it. Kids laugh. Every time I walk outside my classroom door and walk to my car, the first thing that I can hear is the kids across the street at the elementary school. And it's just laughing. They're laughing all the time. Children laugh on an average 300 times a day. Adults chuckle 15 times a day on average. It's terrible. Laugh, laugh, get it out of your system. It's great. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. Makes you feel better. Swearing. Now, don't do this in class, but can swearing actually reduce your level of stress? Studies say yes. Yes, it can, because what it does is it just releases energy. You know, think of stress. It's going to sound a little, you know, a little disgusting here, crass maybe. Think of stress like gas. You know, if you got gas in your system and you just sit there and you hold it and you're like, that is painful. That does you no good. Sometimes you just need to let it go. Just need to get it out of your system. Now, again, you don't want to do it in an elevator and around other people, but sometimes we just got to get stuff out of us. And sometimes swearing does get stress out of us. You know, researchers had tested subjects where they had them put their hands in ice water. And how did they perceive pain? And what they discovered was subjects that submerged their hands twice, once while swearing like crazy, and the other times when saying a non-sweary word, those who swore actually felt less stress, and they could keep their hands in the bucket longer when they continue to stress, and the stress even made them laugh a little bit. Theories as to why it allows a release of stress, because it's dealing with a forbidden tattoo. You're not taboo. You're not worried about, you know, what you're stressing about over here because you're breaking these rules by saying something inappropriate. It separates fear of stress from the experience of stress, and it kicks off our fight or flight to deal with stress. Sometimes we just gotta foul, filth, and mother foul, and filth and foul. Just gotta get it out of our system. One of my favorite series of books right here. My second oldest son is getting ready to have a baby come Christmas time, and my wife and I are getting them this book. When parents read this book, you know, The Child Who Won't Go to Sleep, and the audiobook is actually read by Samuel Jackson, but it's Go to the Flip to Sleep. It is a funny, funny book, because all of us have, as parents and dealing with our children, there's part of us that just wants to, you mother foul and filth, and but we know we can't say that to them, so you mother, and we keep it in, and we become more stressed. But sometimes you got to walk out of the house and just go, you just got to get it out. You just got to get it out. It's like gas. Get it out. Get stress out. Other things there about laughter. Biofeedback. Go to the doctor. Check your blood pressure. Check your muscle tension. Do an annual wellness check. I got one coming up here in a couple of weeks. You know, check your blood pressure. You got the machine, HEB, put your arm in it. You know, we've got the greatest medicine in the world. And if you could get a little, you know, pill to help your blood pressure, this to take care of that or whatever, do it. We've got the technology. Use it. And the last thing is meditation. Take time out. Take time out. I'm not saying take a nap. I'm just saying turn off your phone. Turn off everybody else. Go in your mind, go to your happy place. Your happy place relieves stress. Go to your little imaginary happy place. Makes you feel better. Go away from the real world. Go to imagination. Go to fantasy land. You'll feel a little bit better. Now, again, you go there temporarily. You can't stay there. But it also can relieve stress. And that's all the way through lecture 10. This is one of, if not the biggest unit. Yep, there's one other unit with 10 lectures. So that wraps up this. So your test is coming up on this, and then next we will go to unit